A single father in a janitor's uniform just solved a tech crisis that 30 engineers couldn't fix. The CEO who laughed at him? She's about to discover he built the entire system she's been running. But here's the twist. Years ago, she was part of the deal that erased his name and stole everything he created. Tonight, in front of the whole company, the truth is about to explode. This is a story about invisible brilliance, ruthless ambition, and one man who lost everything to save the person he loved most. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Let's begin. The fluorescent lights on the 27th floor of Nexora Systems hummed with a frequency that made your teeth ache if you listened long enough. Ryan Mercer had been listening to them for 3 years now, every night from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., pushing a maintenance cart through corridors that smelled like expensive coffee and the particular kind of desperation that came with venture capital deadlines. Tonight felt different. He could tell from the way people were moving, faster, sharper, with that specific panic that happened when money was actually on the line. Not theoretical money, not projected quarterly revenue. Real money, the kind that made CEOs sweat through their designer shirts. Ryan kept his head down, emptying trash bins that cost more than his monthly rent. The engineers barely glanced at him. They never did. He'd perfected the art of being functionally invisible over the past 3 years. It was easier that way, safer. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, careful to keep it low. A text from Mrs. Chen, his neighbor. "Ava's asking for you. Had a nightmare. Told her you'd call on your break." Ryan felt that familiar twist in his chest, the one that never really went away. Ava was 7 now, and she still had nightmares about the hospital, about the machines, about her mother's last days. The therapist said it was normal. The therapist also cost $180 an hour that Ryan didn't have, so they'd stopped going 2 months ago. He texted back, "Tell her I'll bring pancakes for breakfast, the ones with the chocolate chips she likes." 3 years of night shifts, 3 years of being invisible, 3 years of watching people half his age make decisions about systems he'd designed, watching them break things he'd built, watching them collect bonuses for fixing problems they'd created in the first place. But Ava needed stability. She needed food and a roof and a school that didn't have metal detectors. She needed a father who came home, even if it was at 8 in the morning when other dads were leaving for work. So Ryan pushed his cart and emptied trash bins and kept his mouth shut. The noise level on the floor had been rising steadily over the past hour. Ryan had worked enough corporate disasters to recognize the sound of things going genuinely wrong. Not the usual chaos of a product launch or a missed deadline, but the specific frequency of fear that happened when the foundation started cracking. He was near the main server room now, where the transparent walls let everyone see the blinking lights, and expensive hardware that kept Nexora's payment processing system running. A crowd had gathered, engineers, managers, people in suits who only showed up when lawyers were about to get involved. Ryan slowed his cart, listening. Completely locked up. Every retry is making it worse. Started with the Singapore cluster, but it's spreading. Payment queue is backing up. We're at 11,000 transactions stuck in limbo. If this hits 15,000, the whole system cascades, and we're offline for days. Ryan recognized the voices. Marcus, the lead systems architect who'd replaced the person who'd replaced Ryan's replacement. Priya, who handled database optimization and had excellent instincts but kept getting overruled by people who thought years of experience mattered less than degrees from the right schools. Jeff, the VP of engineering who'd been hired 6 months ago from a social media company and still didn't understand that payment processing and social feeds required fundamentally different architectures. What about the rollback? That was a woman's voice, cutting through the noise. Clear and cold. Claire Bennett, CEO, 30 years old, Harvard MBA, 3 successful exits before she'd taken over Nexora 2 years ago. Ryan had never spoken to her directly. People at his level didn't speak to people at her level. Rollback failed, Marcus said, and Ryan could hear the edge in his voice. The deployment hooks are corrupted. We try to roll back now. We might brick the entire production environment. Might? Claire's voice went even colder. I need certainties, not possibilities. Then here's a certainty, Jeff cut in. We've got about 40 minutes before this becomes a news story. 90 minutes before we're in breach of contract with every major client we have. 2 hours before the board starts making calls about replacement leadership. Silence. The kind that felt like pressure building. Ryan should have kept walking, should have pushed his cart to the next trash bin, maintained his invisibility, stayed in his lane. Instead, he found himself moving closer to the transparent wall, looking at the dashboard displays that showed the system's vital signs. Red everywhere. Error cascades. Transaction queues backing up like cars on a highway after an accident. And there, buried in the metrics, he saw it. The pattern. He knew this pattern. He'd seen it before years ago, during the beta testing phase of the original system. Back when it was still his system, before the acquisition, before everything fell apart. This wasn't a deployment failure. This wasn't corrupted hooks. This was a race condition in the queue management system, triggered by a specific combination of traffic patterns and server loads. The kind of bug that looked like a dozen different problems depending on where you were looking, but had a single root cause. And he knew how to fix it. Ryan's hand was on the server room door before he'd consciously decided to move. The room went quiet as he stepped inside. 30 faces turned toward him, some confused, some annoyed. A few didn't even register his presence as human, just an interruption, a maintenance worker who'd wandered into the wrong room. "Excuse me?" That was Jeff, using the tone people used when they were being polite but really wanted you gone. "This is a restricted area right now. We're dealing with a crisis." Ryan's mouth was dry. 3 years of invisibility. 3 years of keeping his head down. He thought of Ava, asleep now, dreaming of her father as someone who could fix things. Someone who mattered. "I know what's wrong with your system," Ryan said. The silence that followed wasn't the respectful kind. It was the kind that happened right before people started laughing. Marcus spoke first. "Look, man, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but we've got senior engineers working on this. Maybe you could—" "It's a race condition in the payment queue processor." Ryan's voice came out steadier than he felt. "Your monitoring is showing it as a cascade failure, but that's a symptom, not the cause. The Singapore cluster hit a specific combination of load and latency that triggered a deadlock in the queue handler. Every retry you're sending is making it worse because you're adding more threads to a system that's already locked on thread contention." Complete silence now. Different kind. Priya's eyes narrowed. "How would a maintenance worker know anything about our queue architecture?" Ryan met her gaze. "Because I designed it." That's when Claire Bennett stepped forward. She was smaller than she looked in the company newsletters, maybe 5'4", wearing a black suit that probably cost more than Ryan's car. Her eyes were gray and very cold. "You designed our payment queue system," she said. Not a question. The tone people used when they were giving you rope to hang yourself with. "The original version, yes, the core architecture. You've built on top of it, modified it, but the fundamental structure is still there." Ryan could feel his heart hammering. "I can fix this, but you need to let me access the system console." Jeff actually laughed. "This is insane, Claire. We don't have time for—" "How would you fix it?" Claire interrupted, still watching Ryan. "Specifically," Ryan took a breath. "You need to temporarily disable the auto-scaling feature on the queue processors. Right now your system is trying to solve the problem by adding more capacity, but that's like pouring gasoline on a fire. The race condition triggers when you have more than 8 parallel processors competing for the same queue locks. Disable auto-scaling, manually reduce the processor count to 4, clear the deadlocked threads, then restart the queue handler with a single-threaded bootstrap before re-enabling parallel processing." Priya was pulling up something on her tablet. That matches the thread dump I was looking at. The lock contention pattern. "It's still insane," Jeff said. "We're going to let a janitor—" "Maintenance worker," Ryan corrected quietly. "Maintenance worker access our production system during a critical failure? Claire, think about the liability. I'm thinking about the fact that we have 37 minutes before this becomes a news story," Claire said. Her eyes never left Ryan's face. "And I'm thinking about the fact that your team has had 3 hours to fix this and haven't." She stepped closer to Ryan, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. "If you're wrong," she said softly, "if you make this worse, I will personally ensure that you never work in this city again. Not in tech, Not in maintenance, not anywhere. Do you understand? Ryan thought about Ava, about pancakes with chocolate chips, about the rent that was due in 6 days. I understand, he said. Claire held his gaze for another moment, then stepped back. Give him console access. The room erupted. Claire, this is completely insane. We can't just... Liability alone would. Now. Claire's voice cut through everything. Or you're all fired, and I'll let him fix it anyway. Silence. Marcus moved to one of the workstations, his face tight. You'll need to authenticate, and every command you run is being logged. That's fine, Ryan said. His hands were shaking as he sat down at the console. The keyboard felt familiar and foreign at the same time. How long had it been since he'd done this? Really done this, not just remembered doing it during the long nights when he couldn't sleep? The command line blinked at him. Waiting. Ryan's fingers found the keys. First, check the current state. The monitoring dashboard showed what he'd expected. Queue depth climbing, processor threads multiplying, locks cascading. A beautiful disaster, if you could look at it objectively. What's he doing? Someone whispered behind him. Checking the process tree, Priya answered, looking at thread allocation. Ryan tuned them out. The system was talking to him now, the way it always had. Every error message, every stuck thread, every blocked queue was a piece of the story. And he'd written this story years ago in a different office with different people who'd believed in him. He typed the command to disable autoscaling. Wait, Jeff started. The autoscaling shut down. The processor count stopped climbing. Someone gasped. The error rate had spiked. He's making it worse, Marcus said. Claire, we need to stop this. He's clearing the deadlock, Priya said quietly. Look at the thread count. Ryan was already 3 steps ahead, manually reducing the processor count, sending the kill signals to the excess threads in the precise order that would unwind the contention without orphaning any transactions. The room had gone quiet again. On the main display, the error cascade was slowing, not stopping, not yet, but the pattern was changing. The locked threads were releasing. The queue was still backed up, but it was no longer growing. Ryan's fingers flew across the keyboard. Clear the dead threads. Reset the queue handler. Bootstrap with a single processor to verify the locks were clean. The main display flickered. Someone made a sound that might have been a prayer. Then slowly the queue started processing. 1 transaction, 10, 100. Ryan waited until the single processor had cleared 1,000 transactions, proving the system was stable, before he re-enabled parallel processing with the thread count locked at 4. The queue depth started dropping. Fast. Error rate declining. Transaction throughput climbing. Latency normalizing. On the main display, red started turning yellow. Yellow started turning green. Ryan sat back from the console, his hands still shaking. The room was absolutely silent. On the main dashboard, every critical metric had stabilized. The payment queue was processing normally. The error rate had dropped to baseline. The cascading failure had stopped cascading. 37 minutes. The whole thing had taken him less than 4 minutes to fix. Claire Bennett was staring at the display, then at Ryan, then back at the display. Someone checked the logs, she said quietly. Verify this is real. Marcus was already typing. Transaction integrity is clean. No data loss. Queue processing is normal. System is stable. How? Jeff's voice trailed off. Ryan stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. You should monitor the thread count over the next few hours. If the load increases and you start seeing contention again, you'll need to optimize the queue lock implementation. It's using an older synchronization primitive that doesn't scale well past 4 processors. But this will hold for now. Priya was looking at him like he'd just performed magic. Who are you? Ryan picked up his maintenance cart handle. I'm nobody. Just a maintenance worker who got lucky. Bullshit. That was Claire. She'd moved between Ryan and the door. Nobody gets that lucky. Nobody knows our system architecture that intimately by accident. Her eyes narrowed. Marcus, pull up the acquisition records from 5 years ago. The Meridian Systems deal. Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. Claire, what are you... Jeff started. The Meridian acquisition, Claire repeated. The payment processing startup we bought and built Nexora on top of. I want to see the original team roster. Marcus was typing. Ryan watched his face change as he found what he was looking for. Oh my God, Marcus said quietly. Read it, Claire ordered. Lead architect and co-founder of Meridian Systems. Marcus looked up at Ryan. Ryan Mercer. The room exploded with whispers. Claire's face had gone very still. Ryan Mercer. You designed Meridian's payment system, the system we acquired, the system that became the foundation for everything Nixora does. It wasn't a question. Ryan met her eyes. Yes. And now you're working maintenance, night shift, emptying our trash bins. Claire's voice was soft, almost gentle. That made it worse somehow. What happened? Ryan thought about all the ways he could answer that. The complicated truth, the legal battles, the non-compete clauses, the investors who'd pushed him out of his own company. But what came out was simpler. My wife got sick, cancer, stage 4. I sold my shares to pay for treatment. It wasn't enough. The silence in the room had a different quality now. The treatment didn't work, Ryan continued, his voice flat. She died 3 years ago. The acquisition deal had a non-compete clause that kept me from working in payment processing for any competitor. Nexora wasn't technically a competitor since you bought us, but good luck explaining that to potential employers. I needed work. Any work. You were hiring maintenance. I took it. Claire's face was unreadable. You've been working here for 3 years, watching us build on your system, watching us make mistakes, watching us take credit for your work. I've been raising my daughter, Ryan corrected. The job is just a job. Why didn't you say anything? Priya asked. Why didn't you tell anyone who you were? Ryan almost laughed. Tell you what? That I used to be someone important? That I designed the system you're all working on? Would it have mattered? Would you have treated the night janitor differently if you knew he had a degree from MIT and a patent portfolio? No one answered. I didn't think so, Ryan said quietly. He moved toward the door. Your system's stable. You should be fine. I need to get back to work. Wait. Claire's voice stopped him. We need to talk about your role here, about compensation for tonight, I don't need compensation, Ryan interrupted. I did what anyone would do. The problem was there. I fixed it, that's all. That's not all, Claire said. You saved this company tonight. You saved my company. That deserves more than just going back to mopping floors. Ryan turned to look at her. Really look at her. She was young, brilliant, successful. Everything he'd been before life had taken it all away. And she was looking at him with something that might have been respect or might have been calculation. With people like Claire Bennett, it was hard to tell the difference. What I deserve, Ryan said carefully, is to go home in 3 hours, make my daughter pancakes, and help her get ready for school. That's what matters. Not this. Not any of this. He pulled open the door. Ryan, Claire's voice followed him. This isn't over. We're going to talk about this. Tomorrow. My office. 2 p.m. Ryan didn't answer. He pushed his maintenance cart back into the hallway, back into the fluorescent-lit corridors, back into the comfortable invisibility of being no one important. Behind him, he could hear the engineers starting to talk, their voices rising with excitement and confusion, and the particular energy that came after a crisis had been averted. Ryan kept walking. His phone buzzed. Another text from Mrs. Chen. She's asleep now. Told her you'd be home soon. Ryan typed back. On my way. Thank you. 3 more hours. Then pancakes. Then Ava's smile when she told him about her dreams, the good ones, the ones where her mother was still alive and the world made sense. That was what mattered, not the whispers he could hear starting behind him, not the way people were looking at him differently now, their eyes actually seeing him instead of looking through him. Not Claire Bennett's calculating gaze or her promises of talks and compensation and roles. Just Ava. Just breakfast. Just being the father she needed him to be. Ryan pushed his cart toward the next hallway, but found his path blocked by 2 people in security uniforms. Not the regular security guards he knew. These were different. Corporate security. The kind that showed up when executives made calls. Mr. Mercer, the taller one said. Ms. Bennett has asked that you wait in conference room B. She'll be with you shortly. It wasn't phrased as a request. Ryan looked at his watch. 1:47 a.m. Ava would be wondering why he hadn't called. Mrs. Chen would be worried. I have work to finish, he said. We've been instructed to ask you to wait, the security guard repeated. Still polite, still not a request. Ryan could have pushed past them, could have insisted, could have walked out and let whatever consequences follow. But 3 years of night shifts had taught him that fighting powerful people rarely ended well for the powerless. Fine, he said, but I need to make a phone call. They escorted him to conference room B, a glass-walled box with expensive furniture and a view of the city lights. Ryan had cleaned this room 100 times, had never sat in it before. He called Mrs. Chen. "Ryan, is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," he lied. "Work thing. I'm going to be late. Maybe another hour or two. Can you stay with Ava?" Of course. But Ryan, it's so late. Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Ryan said. "I'll explain later." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen." He hung up before she could ask more questions. Through the glass wall, he could see activity in the main office area. Engineers gathered in clusters, talking intensely. Managers on phones. The particular chaos of a crisis being dissected after the fact. And moving through it all, Claire Bennett talking to people, giving orders, her face calm and controlled. She was good at this, Ryan could see. Good at managing chaos. Good at projecting confidence. The kind of CEO who made boards happy and investors richer. The kind of person who would have crushed him even if his wife hadn't gotten sick. 20 minutes later, Claire entered the conference room, alone. She closed the door behind her and sat across from Ryan. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I remember you," Claire said finally. "Not well, but I remember the Meridian acquisition. You were at the final negotiations. You looked different then." Ryan said nothing. "You had longer hair," Claire continued. "Expensive clothes. You were angry about something in the contract terms. The non-compete clauses, I think. You argued with the lawyers." "I lost that argument," Ryan said. "Yes." Claire folded her hands on the table. "You did. And then you disappeared. We assumed you'd gone to another startup, taken your payout, and moved on. You assumed wrong. Clearly." Claire's eyes were sharp. "Why didn't you tell anyone? 3 years, Ryan. 3 years of watching us fumble with your own creation. Why stay silent?" Ryan met her gaze. "You really don't know." "No, I really don't." "Because nobody cares who the janitor used to be," Ryan said. "Nobody looks at the maintenance worker and thinks, maybe this person has a history. I'm invisible. That was the point." "That seems like a waste," Claire said carefully. Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "A waste. Right. You know what's actually a waste? Spending 18 months trying to save your wife while your company gets sold out from under you? Signing away your rights to your own work because you're desperate for cash to pay for experimental treatments that don't work? Watching your daughter cry herself to sleep because mommy's in the hospital again? That's waste, Claire. Everything since then has just been surviving." Claire was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry about your wife." "Are you?" "Yes," she said, and something in her voice sounded genuine. "I am. I can't imagine what that was like." "No," Ryan agreed. "You can't." Another silence. "I want to offer you a position," Claire said. "Chief Technology Architect, full equity package. Salary commensurate with the role. You'd report directly to me, have authority over all technical decisions, and—" "No." Claire blinked. "You haven't heard the full offer." "I don't need to," Ryan said. "I don't want it." "Ryan, be reasonable. You just saved this company. You clearly still have the skills. Why would you refuse?" "Because I have a daughter who needs me home at 8 a.m., Ryan interrupted. "Because I have a life that works, barely, and I'm not interested in blowing it up for a job that will consume 18 hours a day. Because I learned, the hard way, that being important isn't the same as being happy." Claire leaned back, studying him. "What if I could guarantee reasonable hours? Real work-life balance?" "You can't," Ryan said. "Not for a role like that. Not in a company like this. I know how it works. I lived it before. The crises don't care about your schedule. The investors don't care about your daughter's bedtime. The competition doesn't stop because you want to go home. So you'd rather empty trash bins." "I'd rather be there when Ava wakes up," Ryan said. "I'd rather make her breakfast and walk her to school and be someone she can count on. Not someone who makes promises he can't keep because there's always another emergency, another crisis, another reason why daddy can't come home." Claire was quiet for a long moment. I understand, she said finally. I don't agree, but I understand. She stood up. Ryan thought that was it. The conversation was over. Then she turned back. One more thing, Claire said. The Meridian acquisition. You know I was involved in that deal, right? I was working for the venture firm that funded the buyout. I was the one who pushed for those non-compete clauses. I thought we were protecting our investment. I didn't think about what it meant for the people on the other side. Ryan stared at her. I'm not apologizing, Claire continued. It was business. It was the right move for our interests. But I'm saying that I see the cost now. I see what it did to you, and I'm sorry that's how it worked out. She moved toward the door. Claire, Ryan called. She stopped. The system fixed tonight. That's not a permanent solution. The Q architecture needs a ground-up redesign. What I did was a Band-Aid. You've got maybe 6 months before the scaling issues become critical again. Claire turned back. Then help us fix it. Not as CTO. Contract work, remote. Set your own hours. We'll pay market rate. Ryan considered it. Considered the money. Considered what market rate could mean for Ava's therapy, for her school, for the future he was trying to build. I'll think about it, he said. Claire nodded. That's all I'm asking. She left. Ryan sat alone in this conference room, looking out at the city lights, thinking about choices and consequences and the distance between who you were and who you needed to be. His phone buzzed. A text from Ava. She must have grabbed Mrs. Chen's phone. Just 3 words and a heart emoji. Love you, Daddy. Ryan smiled, the first genuine smile all night. He texted back, Love you too, sweetheart. Pancakes soon. Promise. Then he stood, walked out of the conference room, found his maintenance cart where security had left it, and went back to work. Because that's what fathers did. They kept their promises, even the small ones, especially the small ones. Ryan made it home at 7:43 a.m., 17 minutes earlier than usual. The apartment building looked worse in daylight, cracked concrete steps, graffiti someone had half-heartedly painted over, a front door that didn't lock properly unless you knew to lift it while turning the handle. Home. Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway outside his apartment, her small frame wrapped in a floral robe that had seen better decades. She was 72, had lived in the building since before Ryan was born, and had become something like family in the 3 years since Sarah died. You look terrible, she said by way of greeting. Good morning to you too, Mrs. Chen. Don't good morning me. What happened at work? You've never been late before. Ryan unlocked his door, lift and turn, and stepped inside. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms barely bigger than closets, a kitchen with counters that didn't quite line up, and a living room that doubled as Ava's play space. But it was clean, and the heat worked, and the neighbors mostly kept to themselves. Ava was asleep on the couch, still in her pajamas, clutching the stuffed elephant Sarah had given her for her 4th birthday. Her dark hair was tangled across her face. She waited up until almost 3, Mrs. Chen whispered. Kept asking when you'd call. I finally got her to sleep by promising pancakes. Guilt twisted in Ryan's chest. I'm sorry, work thing, complicated. Complicated how? Ryan thought about the server room, the crisis, Claire Bennett's offer. The kind of complicated that doesn't matter. I'm home now. Mrs. Chen gave him a look that said she didn't believe him but wouldn't push. I made coffee. It's terrible, but it's hot. Your coffee's not terrible. Liar. She patted his arm. Go shower. You smell like those chemical cleaners. I'll stay until you're done. Ryan showered quickly, the hot water doing little to wash away the exhaustion settling into his bones. When he emerged, Mrs. Chen was gone and Ava was awake, sitting at the small kitchen table, kicking her feet in the way she did when she was trying to act patient, but really wasn't. Daddy! She launched herself at him and Ryan caught her, lifting her up despite the protest from his back. She was getting bigger. Soon he wouldn't be able to do this anymore. Hey baby, did you sleep okay? You were late, Ava said into his shoulder. Mrs. Chen said you had to work extra. I know, I'm sorry. It's okay. She pulled back to look at him with Sarah's eyes, dark brown, too serious for a 7-year-old. Did you fix something important? Ryan set her down gently. Yeah, I did. Was it hard? A little bit. Ava smiled, the serious look breaking into something bright and uncomplicated. But you fixed it anyway. Because you're good at fixing things. Ryan felt something crack inside his chest, the same way it did every time Ava looked at him like he was capable of anything. I try, sweetheart. Now, I believe someone was promised pancakes? With chocolate chips. With chocolate chips, Ryan confirmed. They made breakfast together, Ava standing on a stool to help stir the batter while Ryan tried not to think about the conversation with Claire, the job offer he'd turned down, the money that could have changed everything. He thought instead about this. Ava's laugh when she snuck chocolate chips directly into her mouth. The way she insisted on flipping one pancake herself, even though it ended up more scrambled than flipped. The comfortable silence while they ate, syrup dripping onto the table because Ava always used too much. This was enough. This had to be enough. At 8:47, Ryan walked Ava to school, holding her hand as they navigated 3 blocks of cracked sidewalks and early morning traffic. Other parents were doing drop-off, most of them looking rushed and distracted, already on their phones, already somewhere else mentally. Ryan tried to be present, tried to remember that these walks wouldn't last forever. "Daddy," Ava said as they reached the school gate, "can we go to the park this weekend? The one with the good swings?" "Absolutely." "Promise?" "Promise." Ava squeezed his hand, then ran toward the entrance where her friend Maya was waiting. She turned back once to wave, her backpack bouncing. Ryan waved back, standing there until she disappeared inside. Then he walked home, climbed the stairs to his apartment, and collapsed onto his bed without bothering to set an alarm. He dreamed of server rooms and hospital machines and Sarah's voice asking him why he hadn't saved her. Ryan woke at 1:37 p.m. to his phone ringing. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Mr. Mercer?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "This is Jennifer from Ms. Bennett's office. She asked me to confirm your 2 o'clock meeting today." Ryan sat up, disoriented. "I didn't agree to a meeting." "Ms. Bennett has you on her calendar. Conference room A. She said it was urgent." "I work nights," Ryan said. "I can't just—" "She anticipated you might say that. She's asked me to inform you that she's prepared to compensate you for your time. Standard consulting rate, $200 per hour with a 4-hour minimum." Ryan did the math automatically. $800. That was almost a full week's salary from his maintenance job. "Mr. Mercer?" "I'll be there," Ryan heard himself say. He hung up and stared at his phone. 200 an hour. The number kept bouncing around his head. That was what consultants made. What he used to make in another life, when he'd been someone important. Ryan showered again, then stood in front of his closet looking at 3 years of maintenance uniforms and casual clothes that had slowly developed holes and stains. Nothing appropriate for a meeting with the CEO. He finally settled on his least-worn jeans and a button-down shirt that had survived from before. It didn't fit quite right anymore. He'd lost weight in the past 3 years. But it would have to do. The bus ride to Nixora took 40 minutes. Ryan spent it looking out the window, watching the city change from his neighborhood to the gleaming downtown corridor where tech companies clustered like antibodies around venture capital. He arrived at 1:54, signed in at the lobby, the daytime security guard looking confused to see the night janitor in civilian clothes, and took the elevator to the 27th floor. Different in daylight. The panic from last night was gone, replaced by the normal hum of a company in operation. Engineers at standing desks, sales calls in glass offices, the smell of expensive coffee and catered lunch. A few people glanced at Ryan as he walked past. 1 or 2 did double takes, probably recognizing him from last night. Conference room A was twice the size of the room he'd waited in before. Claire was already there, along with 3 other people Ryan didn't recognize. "Ryan," Claire said, standing, "thank you for coming. I know this isn't your usual schedule." "Your assistant made it worth my time." "Good," Claire gestured to the others. "This is David Reeves, our CFO. Amanda Zhang, head of legal. And you met Jeff last night, VP of engineering." Jeff looked like he'd swallowed something sour. The others were harder to read. "Please, sit," Claire said. Ryan sat, felt immediately wrong, like he was wearing someone else's clothes to someone else's meeting. "I'll be direct," Claire began. "After you left last night, we did a complete audit of the system. The fix you implemented is holding, but as you predicted, it's not sustainable. We need a permanent solution." "I told you that already." "Yes, and we'd like to hire you to design it." Ryan glanced at the others around the table. David was watching him with the particular intensity of someone calculating value. Amanda had a legal pad covered in notes. Jeff was staring at a spot on the wall, jaw tight. "I already turned down your job offer," Ryan said. "This isn't a job offer," Claire corrected. "It's a consulting contract, limited scope, specific deliverables, work from home on your own schedule. We need a complete redesign of the payment queue architecture. Timeline was 6 months. You'd provide the technical specifications, review our implementation, and be available for critical decisions." "And the compensation?" Ryan asked, because he knew that's what they expected him to ask. David spoke for the first time. $200 per hour for consultation and design work. $500 per hour for any emergency intervention like last night. Estimated total project value around $300,000, depending on hours logged. The number hit Ryan like cold water. $300,000. That was enough to move out of the apartment, enough for Ava's therapy, enough to stop worrying about rent and groceries and what happened if the car finally died, enough to matter. "There's a catch," Ryan said. Because there was always a catch. Amanda glanced at Claire, then opened a folder. "The contract includes a standard intellectual property clause. Any work you produce becomes property of Nexora Systems. We'd also need you to sign an updated NDA covering all proprietary information you encounter during the project. And a non-disparagement clause," David added. "Given your history with the company, we need assurance that you won't discuss the previous acquisition or any related matters publicly." There it was. They wanted to buy his expertise and his silence in the same transaction. Ryan looked at Claire. "You want to make sure I don't tell anyone that you built a billion-dollar company on top of a system you acquired by pushing out the original founder." The room went very quiet. "That's not how I'd phrase it," Claire said carefully. "But yes, we need discretion." "What if I say no?" "Then we wish you well and part ways professionally," Claire said. "But Ryan, $300,000. You have a daughter. You're working night maintenance. This money could change your life." "It could," Ryan agreed. "But what kind of change would it be? I sign away the right to talk about my own history? Pretend the last 5 years didn't happen the way they happened?" Jeff spoke up suddenly. "You know what? This is ridiculous. We don't need him. We have an entire engineering team. We can figure out the queue architecture ourselves." "Can you?" Ryan asked, looking at him directly. "Because you've had 3 years and it's gotten worse, not better. Last night wasn't the first crisis. It's just the first one I fixed. You arrogant—" "Jeff," Claire's voice cut through. "Not helpful." Jeff stood abruptly. "I'm not sitting here while we beg a janitor to save us. We built this company without him. We can fix it without him." He walked out, the door closing hard behind him. Amanda winced. David just looked tired. Claire leaned forward, hands folded on the table. "Ryan, I understand why you're hesitant. I understand that what happened to you wasn't fair, but this is business. It's always been business. I'm offering you a chance to be fairly compensated for your expertise. That's more than most people get." "Most people didn't design the system you're selling," Ryan countered. "No," Claire agreed. "They didn't, which is exactly why you're valuable, why we're willing to pay premium rates, why we're having this conversation instead of just moving forward without you." Ryan thought about Ava at the kitchen table, asking for promises about the park. Thought about Mrs. Chen's terrible coffee and the apartment with counters that didn't line up. Thought about Sarah in the hospital, the machines beeping, the doctors talking about experimental treatments they couldn't afford. $300,000 could mean Ava never had to worry about money. Could mean stability, security, options. All he had to do was sign away the right to his own story. "I need to think about it," Ryan said. "How long?" David asked. "I'll give you an answer by Friday." Claire nodded slowly. "That's fair. But Ryan, I need you to understand something. This offer has an expiration date. We're being generous because you helped us last night. But if you turn this down, we move forward without you. We find another solution, and that door doesn't open again." "Understood," Ryan said. He stood to leave. "One more thing," Amanda said. She slid a document across the table. "This is a check for last night. $800 for your consultation time. No strings attached, regardless of what you decide about the contract." Ryan looked at the check, his name printed in neat corporate typeface. $800. He picked it up, folded it carefully, put it in his pocket. "Thank you," he said. Outside the conference room, the normal office noise felt surreal. People typing, talking, laughing, living their normal lives while Ryan's world shifted underneath him. He made it to the elevator before he ran into Priya. "Ryan, hey." She looked uncertain, like she wasn't sure how to talk to him now that he wasn't just the maintenance guy. "I wanted to say thanks for last night. That was incredible." "Just doing what needed doing," Ryan said. "No, it was more than that." Priya glanced around, then lowered her voice. "I've been trying to get Jeff to address the Q scaling issues for 8 months. He kept saying it was fine, that I was being paranoid. Last night proved I was right, but he'll never admit it." The elevator arrived. Ryan stepped in. Priya followed. "Can I ask you something?" she said as the doors closed. "Why'd you stop? Why aren't you still doing this kind of work?" Ryan watched the floor numbers descend. "Life got complicated. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got." They reached the lobby. Priya stepped out but turned back. "For what it's worth, I hope you take the contract. We need someone who actually knows what they're doing. Jeff's good at managing up, but technically he's lost. We all know it." "Even Jeff?" "Especially Jeff. That's why he hates you." The elevator doors started closing. Ryan caught them. "Priya, if I don't take the contract, what happens?" She shrugged. "Honestly, we'll probably limp along for a few more months, have another crisis. Maybe recover, maybe not. Jeff will blame the team, management will blame Jeff. Eventually someone important will leave, or a major client will drop us, or we'll have a catastrophic failure we can't recover from." She met his eyes. "That's what happens when the foundation is cracked and nobody wants to admit it." "That's not encouraging." "Wasn't meant to be, just honest." Priya stepped back. "Whatever you decide, thanks again for last night. You saved a lot of people's jobs, even if they don't realize it yet." Ryan let the doors close and rode the elevator down. He picked up Ava from school at 3:15, right on time, and they walked home the long way through the park. Ava talked about her day, about Maya bringing cupcakes for her birthday, about the art project they'd started, about how Marcus in her class had said a bad word and gotten in trouble. Normal kid stuff. Beautiful in its normalcy. Ryan listened and made the appropriate responses and tried not to think about $300,000. They made dinner together, boxed mac and cheese with hot dogs cut up in it, Ava's favorite. While they ate, Ava asked the question she'd been building up to. "Daddy, why did you come home late last night?" Ryan considered how to answer. "There was a problem at work, a computer problem. They needed help fixing it." "Did you fix it?" "Yeah, I did." "Because you're good at computers," Ava said matter-of-factly. "You told me once you used to make computer stuff before Mommy got sick." Ryan had forgotten that conversation. It had been over a year ago, one of Ava's endless question phases. He'd mentioned it casually, not thinking she'd remember. "I did," Ryan said carefully. "I was pretty good at it." "So why do you clean buildings now?" Out of the mouths of children. The question was innocent, genuine curiosity, but it hit like an accusation. "Because cleaning buildings pays the bills," Ryan said, "and it lets me be home with you in the mornings." "But if you're good at computer stuff, couldn't you do that and be home with me?" Ryan set down his fork. "It's complicated, sweetheart." "That's what you always say when you don't want to explain," Ava observed. She was too smart for 7, too perceptive. "You're right," Ryan admitted. "I do say that. The real answer is that computer jobs take up a lot of time. They're important, and people expect you to always be available. I didn't want a job like that because I wanted to be here with you." "But you were late last night," Ava pointed out. "I was, and I hated it. I hated not being here when you needed me." Ava considered this, pushing mac and cheese around her plate. "Mommy used to say you were really smart. She said you built important things." Ryan's throat tightened. "Your mom said that?" "Yeah, before she got really sick. She told me that Daddy was going to take care of me and that you could fix anything." Ava looked up at him. She was right. You do fix things. Ryan reached across the table and took Ava's small hand in his. "I try, baby. I really try." That night, after Ava was asleep, Ryan sat at the kitchen table with the contract Amanda had given him. He'd asked for a copy to review and she'd provided it immediately, professionally printed and bound. The terms were generous. More than generous. The intellectual property clause was standard for this kind of work. The NDA was broad but not unreasonable. The The non-disparagement clause was the only thing that stuck. It essentially prevented him from ever publicly discussing how Meridian had been acquired or his role in creating the system Nexora was built on. It was buying silence with money. Ryan thought about calling someone for advice. But who? He didn't have a lawyer. His old friends from the tech world had drifted away after Sarah died, uncomfortable with grief, unsure what to say to someone whose life had imploded. He was alone with this decision. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Claire. I know you're reviewing the contract. I wanted to say something I couldn't say in front of David and Amanda. What happened to you wasn't fair. The acquisition, the non-compete, all of it. I was part of that machine and I didn't think about the human cost. I can't change the past, but I can offer you this opportunity. I hope you'll take it. Not because I need you, though I do, but because you deserve to be more than invisible." Ryan read it 3 times. He thought about typing a response, decided against it. Instead, he went to Ava's room and stood in the doorway, watching her sleep. She'd kicked off her blankets again. He went in quietly and pulled them back up, tucking them around her shoulders. She stirred slightly, mumbling something he couldn't make out. "I've got you, baby," Ryan whispered. "I've always got you." He went back to the kitchen and opened his laptop, an old machine that took 3 minutes to boot up. Found the folder he kept backed up in 3 different places, the one labeled Meridian. Original specs. Everything was there. Every design document, every architecture decision, every line of code from the original system. His system, the foundation that Nexora had built their empire on. Ryan hadn't looked at these files in 3 years. Opening them felt like opening a wound. But he did it anyway. And as he read through the documentation he'd written years ago, he realized something. The system was elegant, efficient, well-designed for its time, but it had limitations he'd known about even then, constraints he'd planned to address in version 2. Version 2 had never happened because the acquisition had come first. Nexora had built on top of version 1 without ever understanding its limitations. They'd scaled it beyond what it was meant to handle. They'd added features and modifications without grasping the core architecture, and now it was breaking. Ryan could fix it. He could design the version 2 he'd always planned, could build something better, stronger, something that would last. The question was whether he should, whether selling his expertise to the company that had erased him was justice or just good business, whether $300,000 was enough to make peace with being forgotten. Ryan closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen, listening to the building settle around him, to the distant sound of traffic, to the quiet breathing of his daughter asleep down the hall. By morning, he still hadn't decided. Wednesday brought rain, the kind that turned the city gray and made everything feel heavier. Ryan went to work that night still undecided, the unsigned contract sitting in his backpack like unfinished business. The 27th floor was quieter than usual. Most of the engineers had gone home by midnight. Ryan pushed his cart through the familiar corridors, emptying trash bins, wiping down surfaces, existing in the comfortable invisibility he'd perfected. Except it didn't feel comfortable anymore. People who'd never looked at him before were looking now. A few nodded. One engineer, Ryan didn't know his name, actually said good evening as he passed. The shift was subtle but unmistakable. They saw him now, and Ryan wasn't sure he liked it. Around 2 a.m., he found Priya still at her desk, staring at lines of code with the particular exhaustion that came from debugging something that refused to make sense. "You should go home," Ryan said. Priya jumped, then laughed shakily. "Christ, you're quiet. I didn't hear you come up." "Hazard of the job. What are you working on?" "The Q processor. Trying to implement some optimization Jeff suggested." She gestured at her screen. "It's not working. I think his logic is flawed, but I can't figure out where." Ryan glanced at the code, saw the problem immediately. Jeff had confused parallel processing with concurrent processing, a rookie mistake that created race conditions. But saying that would mean getting involved, and he'd promised himself he wouldn't do that anymore. "Maybe sleep on it," Ryan suggested. "Fresh eyes help." "Yeah, maybe." Priya rubbed her face. "Can I ask you something, off the record?" "Sure." "Did they offer you the consulting contract?" Ryan nodded. "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know yet." Priya turned in her chair to face him fully. "Look, I know it's none of my business, but I've been here 4 years and I've watched this company build on quicksand. We've got brilliant people working here, but nobody understands the foundation. Nobody except you." She paused. If you don't take it, I'm probably going to leave. I can't keep fighting these battles alone. That's not fair, Ryan said quietly. Putting that on me. You're right, it's not. But it's true. Priya's voice was steady. No manipulation, just exhaustion. I'm tired, Ryan. Tired of being the only one who sees the problems. Tired of being ignored because I don't have the right pedigree or the right connections. You could change that. You could actually fix this place. Or I could take their money and watch them ignore me too. Maybe, but at least you'd be fairly compensated for it. Ryan didn't have an answer to that. He finished his shift at 7 a.m., deposited the $800 check on his way home, the bank teller doing a double take at the amount, and made pancakes for Ava in a kind of daze. Thursday passed in a blur of normal routine that felt increasingly surreal. School drop-off, sleep, pickup, homework help, dinner, bedtime stories, the rhythm of single parenthood that had sustained him for 3 years. But underneath it all, the decision sat waiting. Friday morning, Ryan woke to find Ava already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a piece of paper and crayons scattered around her. You're up early, he said, pouring himself coffee. I made you something. She held up the paper. It was a drawing, crude in the way 7-year-old art was, but recognizable. 2 stick figures, one tall and one small, holding hands. Above them, she'd written in careful letters, Daddy fixes things. Ryan felt something break open in his chest. That's beautiful, sweetheart. It's for your wall at work, Ava explained. So you remember that you're good at fixing stuff. Mrs. Chen said you've been worried about something, and I thought maybe this would help. Mrs. Chen talks too much, Ryan said, but his voice came out rough. She cares about you. I care about you too. Ava came over and hugged him around the waist. Are you okay, Daddy? Ryan held his daughter, this small person who believed he could fix anything, and made his decision. I'm okay, he said. Better than okay. Thank you for the drawing. At noon, Ryan called the number on Claire's business card. This is Bennett. It's Ryan Mercer. I've made my decision about the contract. A pause. I'm listening. I'll take it. But I have conditions. I'm still listening. First, I want the non-disparagement clause removed. I won't badmouth the company, but I won't sign away my right to tell my own story if I choose to. Ryan, I'm not done. Second, I want equity. Not stock options. Actual equity. 0.5% of the company vested over the contract period. That's not how consulting contracts work. It is now. You said yourself this system is the foundation of everything Nexora does. 0.5% is more than fair for rebuilding that foundation. Ryan kept his voice steady. Third, I want Priya Jong promoted to senior systems architect and given authority over the implementation. She knows the current system better than anyone, and she's been ignored for too long. Claire was quiet for a long moment. You're negotiating for someone else's promotion? She's the only one on your team who actually knows what she's doing. If I'm going to design this, I need someone competent implementing it. Anything else? Yeah. Jeff needs to stay out of my way. I don't report to him. I don't clear decisions with him. And if he tries to override my technical specifications, the contract is void and you pay me for all hours worked to that point. Another silence. Ryan could hear papers rustling. Imagine Claire in her office, probably with David and Amanda listening on speakerphone. This is significantly different from what we offered, Claire said finally. I know, but you came to me, remember? You said you needed me. These are my terms. The equity alone changes the entire structure of the deal. I'll need to take this to the board. You've got until Monday. After that, the offer expires. Ryan borrowed Claire's own tactic. I'm being generous because you helped me see that I deserve more than being invisible, but this door doesn't stay open forever. He heard something that might have been a laugh. You're learning. I had good teachers, hard ones, but good. I'll call you Monday morning, Claire said. I'll be waiting. Ryan hung up and immediately felt the weight of what he'd just done. He'd negotiated. Actually negotiated something he'd been terrible at 5 years ago. Too eager to please, too afraid of losing the deal. But he wasn't that person anymore. Losing Sarah had burned away the parts of him that needed approval. What remained was harder, clearer about what mattered. His phone rang again almost immediately. Different number. Mr. Mercer, this is David Reeves. I was on the call just now. I figured. That equity demand. You understand that's worth potentially millions if the company goes public? I understand that the company goes exactly nowhere if the foundation collapses. 0.5% is cheap insurance. David laughed, surprising Ryan. Fair point. Between you and me, I think you're undervaluing yourself. But I'm not going to tell you that officially. Why are you telling me at all? Because I like people who know their worth. The board meeting is Monday at 9 a.m. I'll recommend they accept your terms. Claire probably will too. Jeff is going to lose his mind, but honestly, that's overdue. I didn't mean to cause problems. Yes, you did. You meant to cause exactly these problems, the kind that force people to face reality. David's voice was almost warm. Good for you. We'll be in touch Monday. The weekend passed in a strange limbo. Ryan took Ava to the park like he'd promised, pushing her on the swings while she shrieked with delight. They got ice cream despite the cool weather, watched movies on the couch, Ava falling asleep against his shoulder halfway through the second one. Normal life. Good life. Ryan tried not to think about how it might change. Sunday evening, while Ava was in the bath, Mrs. Chen knocked on the door. You look different, she said, studying his face. Different how? Less tired, less like you're carrying everything alone. She came inside without waiting for invitation, the way she always did. What happened? Ryan told her. Not everything, but enough. The contract offer, his counter demands, the waiting. Mrs. Chen listened, nodding occasionally, her face impossible to read. So you might be rich, she said when he finished. I might be fairly compensated, Ryan corrected. That's what rich people say when they don't want to admit they're rich. She smiled. I'm happy for you, Ryan. You deserve this. Do I? Don't do that. Don't question whether you deserve good things. Your wife would be proud of you. The mention of Sarah hit unexpectedly. Would she? She'd be furious you waited so long to value yourself properly. But yes, proud. Mrs. Chen patted his hand. That girl in there, she needs a father who believes in himself, not one who thinks being invisible is a virtue. I was trying to be stable for her. And you were. But stability and stagnation aren't the same thing. Mrs. Chen stood to leave. Take the job, Ryan. Take the money. Take the respect. You earned all of it twice over. Monday morning at 10:47, Claire called. The board approved your terms. All of them. Ryan had been pacing his apartment, unable to sit still. He stopped. All of them? The equity, the NDA modification, Priya's promotion, Jeff's exclusion, all approved. Claire's voice was crisp, businesslike. Amanda is drawing up the revised contract. We can have it ready for signature by tomorrow. That was fast. David and I made a compelling case. Plus, Jeff tried to present an alternative solution that fell apart under technical scrutiny. Made our argument easier. A pause. He's not happy about this, Ryan. Just so you know what you're walking into. I can handle Jeff. I'm sure you can. One more thing. The board wants to meet you. Formal introduction. Let them know who they're entrusting their platform to. Dinner, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. at Marchand's. Business, formal. Ryan looked at his closet, mentally cataloging his wardrobe. I don't own a suit. Then buy one. Bill it to the contract. You're a consultant now, Ryan. Appearance matters. Right. Appearance. I know you hate this part, Claire said, and for the first time she sounded almost sympathetic. The performance, the presentation, but these are the people with the checkbooks. Impress them and your life gets easier. Or I could just do good work. Do both. Wednesday, 7 p.m. Don't be late. Tuesday. Ryan did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He called in sick to his maintenance job. The supervisor, a perpetually stressed man named Dale, sounded confused. You've never called in sick. You okay? I'm fine, just need to handle some personal business. This about that computer thing last week? People are talking, saying you're some kind of genius or something. People exaggerate. Uh-huh. Well, take the night. But Ryan, we need to talk when you come back, about your future here. Ryan hung up knowing he'd probably just worked his last shift at Nexora Maintenance. The thought should have scared him. Instead, he felt oddly free. He spent Tuesday afternoon at a men's clothing store downtown, feeling completely out of place among the mannequins and designer suits, and the salespeople who smelled like expensive cologne. Can I help you? A young guy, probably 23, looked at Ryan's jeans and t-shirt with barely concealed judgment. I need a suit, business formal, for Wednesday night. We have several options in your price range. Price isn't a concern, Ryan interrupted, channeling the person he used to be. I need something that fits well and looks professional. I've got a board dinner. The salesperson's demeanor shifted immediately. Of course, right this way. 2 hours later, Ryan walked out with a charcoal gray suit that cost more than a month's rent, 2 dress shirts, a tie that the salesperson insisted was understated but confident, and shoes that hurt his feet. He also walked out feeling like a fraud. That evening, after Ava was asleep, Ryan tried on the suit again, stood in front of the bathroom mirror, the only full-length mirror in the apartment, and barely recognized himself. He looked successful, professional, like someone important, like the person he used to be before everything fell apart. His phone buzzed. Text from Claire. Amanda needs you to come by tomorrow to sign the contract. 10 a.m. work for you? Ryan texted back. I'll be there. Wednesday morning, Ryan dropped Ava at school wearing the new suit. Other parents stared. Ava's teacher did a double take. Daddy, you look fancy, Ava said. Is this for your new job? It's for a meeting about my new job. Are you nervous? Ryan crouched down to her level. Yeah, a little. Don't be. You're the smartest person I know. She hugged him, getting playground dirt on his jacket. Love you. Love you too, sweetheart. The contract signing took 15 minutes. Amanda walked him through every clause, every term, every obligation and right. Ryan read carefully, looking for traps, but it was clean. Exactly what they'd agreed to. He signed on page 17, his hand steady. Congratulations, Amanda said, sliding a copy across to him. You're officially a Nexora consultant. Equity papers will be filed by end of week. That's it? That's it. Welcome back to the world of people who matter. The comment stung because it was true. 3 years of being invisible, erased with a signature. Ryan spent the afternoon preparing for the board dinner, researching the members, understanding their backgrounds and priorities. This was the game he'd once been good at, before he decided being good at it didn't matter compared to saving Sarah. At 6:30 p.m., he put on the suit again, checked himself in the mirror, straightened the tie that cost $90. Mrs. Chen was watching Ava. She'd taken one look at Ryan and whistled. Look at you, very handsome, very important looking. I feel ridiculous. Good. That means you haven't forgotten where you came from. She adjusted his collar with practiced hands. Go impress them. Then come home and be yourself again. Marchand's was the kind of restaurant that didn't list prices on the menu and where the waiter spoke in hushed tones. Ryan arrived at 6:55, early enough to not be late enough to not seem desperate. Claire was already there, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than Ryan's suit. With her were 5 people, 3 men, 2 women, all in their 50s or 60s, all radiating the particular confidence that came with serious wealth. Ryan, Claire said, standing. Thank you for coming. Let me introduce you. The introductions blurred together, names and titles and handshakes. Patricia something, venture capital. Robert something else, former tech executive. The others Ryan forgot immediately. They sat, ordered drinks Ryan couldn't pronounce, made small talk about the weather and the restaurant and nothing that actually mattered. Then Patricia, sitting directly across from Ryan, leaned forward. So, you're the man who built Meridian's payment system. I am. And you've been working maintenance at Nexora for 3 years. I have. That must have been humbling. Ryan met her gaze. It was honest work. Nothing humble about it. A ripple went through the table. Not quite tension, but close. I didn't mean to imply, Patricia started. Yes, you did, Ryan interrupted gently. You meant exactly that. It's fine. Most people think the same way, that cleaning floors is somehow less valuable than writing code. But here's the thing, both keep the company running. One just pays better. Claire was watching him with an expression Ryan couldn't read. Robert spoke up. We've reviewed your technical specifications for the Q redesign. Impressive work, but the timeline seems aggressive. 6 months to completely rebuild the core architecture? 6 months to design and implement, yes. Could be done in 4 if your team is competent and focused. That's quite confident. It's realistic. The current system is my design. I know exactly where the weaknesses are because I documented them 5 years ago. I know exactly how to fix them because I've had 3 years of night shifts to think about it. One of the other board members, Ryan thought his name was Michael, laughed. 3 years thinking about payment queue architecture. That's dedication or insanity. It's what happens when you watch your creation being mismanaged, Ryan said. When you see every mistake, every poor decision, every hack job that makes the problem worse, it becomes personal. Is that what this is? Patricia asked. Personal? Ryan considered lying, considered being diplomatic, decided against it. Yes, he said. It's personal. You acquired my company, pushed me out, built an empire on my work, and paid me almost nothing for it. Then, when your empire started cracking, I was conveniently there to fix it. So yeah, it's personal, but it's also professional. I'm good at this. Better than anyone else you'll find. And I'm charging you accordingly. The table went very quiet. Claire looked like she wanted to say something, stopped herself. Then Patricia smiled. I like you. You're direct. We could use more of that around here. I'm too old to pretend to be someone I'm not, Ryan said. How old are you? Michael asked. 32. 32, wife died, company stolen, spent 3 years as a janitor. That's a lot of living for 32. Life doesn't care about your age, Ryan said quietly. The dinner continued. Food arrived. Small plates of things Ryan couldn't identify, but that tasted expensive. Wine flowed. Conversation shifted to business strategy, market positioning, competitive threats. Ryan participated when asked, stayed quiet when not. Watched the dynamics, understanding who had real power and who just had titles. Patricia, he realized, was the one who actually mattered. The others deferred to her in subtle ways. By dessert, she'd made her decision. Ryan could see it in how she looked at him. Ryan, she said as coffee arrived, I'm going to be frank. When Claire first proposed this contract, I was skeptical. Seemed like we were paying premium rates for revenge fantasy, a janitor getting his moment. But talking to you tonight, I see something different. What's that? Someone who knows exactly what they're worth and isn't afraid to demand it. Someone who's been undervalued and underestimated and is done with that. She raised her coffee cup slightly. Someone who's going to do brilliant work because they have something to prove. I have a daughter to provide for, Ryan corrected. The proving part is secondary. Even better, nothing motivates like family. Patricia set down her cup. You have my full support. The resources you need, the authority to make decisions, the protection from internal politics, all of it. Build us something that lasts. I intend to. The dinner wound down. Handshakes and business cards and promises to stay in touch. Ryan escaped at 9:30, his face hurting from smiling, his brain exhausted from being on. He loosened his tie in the parking garage, sitting in his car for a few minutes before driving home. His phone buzzed. Text from Claire. You did well tonight. Patricia doesn't give compliments lightly. Ryan typed back. Just being honest. Claire responded immediately. That's what impressed her. Most consultants tell boards what they want to hear. You told them what they needed to hear. Ryan started the car, turned on the heat against the night chill. Typed, Is Jeff going to be a problem? The response took longer this time. Probably. But that's my problem, not yours. Focus on the work. I'll handle the politics. Ryan drove home thinking about that, about how easily Claire talked about handling politics, managing people, controlling situations. She was good at it. Better than he'd ever been. Different skills, he thought. She was good at the game. He was good at the work. Maybe that was enough. Mrs. Chen was asleep on his couch when he got home, the TV playing quietly. He woke her gently. How'd it go? She asked, disoriented. Better than expected. They liked me. Of course they did. You're likable when you're not trying to disappear. She gathered her things. Ava went to bed at 8:30. She wanted to wait up, but I convinced her you needed her well-rested for tomorrow. Thank you, Mrs. Chen, for everything. Stop thanking me. We're family. She patted his cheek. Now get some sleep. You start your new life tomorrow. After she left, Ryan checked on Ava. She was sprawled across her bed, blankets kicked off, one arm hanging off the edge. He covered her carefully, kissed her forehead. We're going to be okay, he whispered. Better than okay. Ava mumbled something in her sleep, smiled slightly, settled deeper into her pillow. Ryan went to his own room, hung up the expensive suit, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he'd start rebuilding the system he'd created, start fixing what had been broken, start being visible again after 3 years of shadows. The thought terrified and excited him in equal measure, but mostly it felt right, like coming home after a long absence, like finally, after everything, being allowed to be himself again. Ryan's first day as a consultant started with an email from Jeff at 6:47 a.m. "We need to discuss your proposed architecture before you present it to the team." My office, 9 a.m. Not a request. A summons. Ryan was making Ava's lunch when he read it, standing in his kitchen in sweatpants and an old t-shirt. He stared at the email for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. At 8:15, after dropping Ava at school, he showed up at Nixora wearing jeans and a button-down shirt. Not the suit, not the performance, just himself. The receptionist looked confused. "Mr. Mercer? They're expecting you in the executive suite." "I know where I'm going," Ryan said. He took the elevator to the 27th floor, walked past the conference rooms and executive offices, and headed straight for the engineering pod where Priya worked. She looked up from her screen, surprised. "Ryan, I thought you'd be in meetings all day." "Probably will be eventually, but I wanted to start here, with the people doing actual work." He pulled up a chair. "Show me what you're working on." Priya glanced around nervously. "Shouldn't you check in with Jeff first? He's been asking about you." "Jeff can wait. Show me." For the next hour, Ryan and Priya went through the current code base. She walked him through every modification, every patch, every hack that had been implemented over the past 3 years. Ryan took notes, asked questions, and slowly began to see the full scope of what needed fixing. It was worse than he'd thought. Not just the Q architecture, though that was bad enough, but the entire approach was wrong. They'd been treating symptoms instead of diseases, adding complexity instead of simplifying, building higher instead of strengthening the foundation. "This is unsustainable," Ryan said finally. "I know, I've been saying that for months." "And Jeff?" Priya's expression went carefully neutral. "Jeff believes in incremental improvements, small fixes, minimal disruption." "Jeff's wrong. I know that too." Ryan's phone buzzed, text from Claire. "Jeff is looking for you. Where are you?" He typed back. "Engineering pod. Working." Her response was immediate. "He's upset you skipped the meeting. He'll survive." 3 minutes later, Jeff appeared, his face tight with barely controlled anger. "My office, now." Ryan didn't move. "I'm in the middle of something." "I don't care what you're in the middle of. We had a scheduled meeting." "You had a scheduled meeting. I had work to do." Ryan turned back to Priya's screen. "Give me a second to finish this thought." Jeff's face went red. "Do you have any idea how disrespectful this is? I'm the VP of engineering. When I schedule a meeting, you attend." Ryan saved the notes he'd been typing, then stood slowly. "Actually, according to my contract, I don't report to you. I report to Claire, and she knows where I am. That contract doesn't give you the right to ignore basic professional courtesy." "You're right, it doesn't. But neither does your title give you the right to waste my time with meetings designed to establish dominance." Ryan met Jeff's eyes. "You wanted me to come to your office so you could set the terms, make it clear you're still in charge. But here's the thing, Jeff. You're not in charge of me. You're not in charge of this project. And based on what I've seen this morning, you probably shouldn't be in charge of this engineering team either." The entire pod had gone silent, 20 engineers pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. Jeff's voice dropped dangerously low. "You think you can just walk in here and undermine me? I think I can walk in here and do the job I was hired to do. If that undermines you, maybe the problem isn't me." For a moment, Ryan thought Jeff might actually take a swing at him. The man's hands were clenched, his breathing fast. Then Claire's voice cut through the tension. "Gentlemen, my office, both of you, right now." She was standing at the edge of the pod, arms crossed, face unreadable. Ryan and Jeff followed her in silence. The walk felt like being sent to the principal's office, except Ryan wasn't sorry, and Jeff looked ready to explode. Claire's office was corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that cost more than cars. She closed the door and turned to face them. What the hell was that? He ignored my meeting, Jeff said immediately. Showed complete disrespect for... I'm asking Ryan first. Claire's eyes were on him. Why skip the meeting? Because it was a waste of time, Ryan said. Jeff wanted to establish hierarchy. I needed to understand the current code base. One of those things moves the project forward. The other doesn't. You could have attended for 15 minutes, maintained the relationship. I could have, but then I'd be spending the next 6 months playing politics instead of fixing your system. You hired me to do one of those things, not both. Claire was quiet for a moment. Jeff, give us the room. Claire, you can't be serious. Now. Jeff left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Claire sat on the edge of her desk, studying Ryan. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Am I? Jeff's been here 2 years. He has relationships, political capital, the respect of most of the engineering team. You just showed up and humiliated him in front of 20 people. He humiliated himself by trying to assert authority he doesn't have. Maybe. But now I have to manage the fallout. Now I have a VP threatening to resign, half the engineering team taking sides, and a board that's going to hear about this before lunch. Claire rubbed her temples. This is exactly the kind of drama I was trying to avoid. Ryan felt something harden in his chest. You want me to apologize? I want you to be smart about this. Pick your battles. This is my battle. Jeff's approach to the system is fundamentally flawed. Every decision he's made in the past 2 years has made things worse. If I'm going to fix this, I need him out of my way, not undermining me, not second-guessing technical decisions, not playing power games. So you decided to declare war on day 1. I decided to be clear about boundaries. Claire stood, moved to the window. The city stretched out below, gray and vast. You know what's funny? The board loved you last night, loved your directness, your confidence, your refusal to play games. But that only works when you're the underdog, when you're the janitor turned consultant telling truth to power. Now you're part of the system, and the system requires compromise. I don't work for the system, Ryan said. I work for you, and I work for the people trying to build good technology despite having incompetent leadership. If that's a problem, tell me now. Claire turned back to him. It's not a problem, but Jeff's not going anywhere. The board won't let me fire a VP 2 months before our funding round, so you're going to have to find a way to coexist. I can coexist as long as he stays out of technical decisions. That's his job, Ryan, making technical decisions. Then his job and mine are incompatible. They stared at each other. Some kind of test happening, though Ryan wasn't sure who was testing whom. Here's what's going to happen, Claire said finally. You're going to apologize to Jeff for the public confrontation, not for being right, for how you were right. Then you're going to set up a weekly sync with him where you update him on technical progress. He gets to ask questions, provide input, but final decisions on the architecture redesign are yours. And if he tries to override me, then I step in. But you have to give him the chance to be professional first. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to push back, maintain the hard line. But he thought about Mrs. Chen's words, about being smart, not just right. Fine, he said. I'll apologize for the confrontation. Thank you. But Claire, I meant what I said. His technical approach is wrong. If he keeps pushing his ideas, this project fails. And if this project fails, your company fails. I know, Claire said quietly. Why do you think I hired you? The apology happened in Jeff's office an hour later. Ryan kept it brief and factual. I shouldn't have contradicted you in front of the team. That was unprofessional. I apologize. Jeff was sitting behind his desk, still angry but trying to hide it. Apology accepted, but we need to establish some ground rules going forward. I agree. Claire suggested weekly syncs. That work for you? It's a start, but I need to be clear. I'm still responsible for this engineering team. That includes the people who will be implementing your designs. I can't have you going around me, undermining my authority. And I can't have you overriding technical decisions that you don't understand. Jeff's jaw tightened. I understand more than you think. Then explain to me why you recommended parallel processing optimization when the core issue is lock contention. Explain why you've been adding capacity instead of reducing complexity. Explain. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Jeff interrupted. This condescending attitude, like you're the only one who knows anything. Ryan took a breath. Started over. You're right, that was condescending. Let me try again. I've spent the morning reviewing the code base with Priya. I see where you were trying to go with the optimizations, but I think there's a fundamental architectural issue that no amount of optimization can fix. I'd like to walk you through my analysis. Get your perspective. It was an olive branch. Ryan watched Jeff decide whether to take it. Friday afternoon, Jeff said finally. 3 p.m. Bring your analysis and we'll discuss it. I'll be there. Ryan left feeling like he'd just negotiated a hostage release. Exhausting and slightly absurd, but necessary. He spent the rest of the day with Priya and 2 other senior engineers, Marcus and a woman named Lisa. They went through the system piece by piece, documenting every issue, every workaround, every place where the architecture was held together with duct tape and prayers. By 6 p.m., Ryan had filled 3 whiteboards with diagrams and notes. This is going to be a complete rebuild, Lisa said, staring at the boards. Not a refactor, a ground-up redesign. I know. That's going to take longer than 6 months. It would if we were doing it their way, but we're not. Ryan pointed to one of the diagrams. We're going to build the new system alongside the old one, run them in parallel, gradually migrate traffic over as we prove stability. That way we can move fast without risking the production environment. Marcus frowned. That's going to require serious resources, duplicate infrastructure, monitoring, data migration tools. I'll get you the resources. That's what Claire hired me for. And if Jeff blocks it, Priya asked. He won't, because I'm going to explain it to him Friday in a way that makes it seem like his idea. Lisa laughed. You're learning politics fast. I'm learning survival, Ryan corrected. He left Nixora at 6:30, picked up Ava from after-school care, and took her out for pizza. She talked about her day, about art class and recess, and how Marcus had apologized for saying the bad word, and they were friends again. Normal kid stuff. Beautiful and grounding. Daddy, you seem different, Ava said through a mouthful of pepperoni. Different how? Happier, less tired. Ryan realized she was right. Despite the confrontation with Jeff, despite the politics and complexity, he felt more alive than he had in 3 years. I think I am happier, he said. Is that okay? It's good. I like it when you smile. I'll try to smile more. That night, after Ava was asleep, Ryan opened his laptop and started drafting the technical specifications for the new architecture. The work came easily, naturally, like speaking a language he'd forgotten he was fluent in. He worked until 2 a.m., lost in the flow of solving problems, building systems, creating something that would last. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Mornings with Ava, days at Nixora, working with Priya's team, building the new architecture specification by specification. Friday meetings with Jeff that were tense but productive. Evening with Ava. Late nights coding, designing, perfecting. Ryan stopped sleeping much. Didn't need to. The work energized him. 3 weeks in, Claire called him into her office. You look terrible, she said by way of greeting. I'm fine. You're working 18-hour days. I can see it in your face. The timeline is aggressive. I'm doing what needs doing. Claire leaned back in her chair. I got a call from Patricia yesterday. She wanted an update on the project. I told her we're ahead of schedule, that your designs are brilliant, that the team is energized. All of that is true. But I also told her I'm concerned about sustainability. I'm sustainable. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone running on fumes and stubbornness. Ryan thought about denying it, but Claire deserved honesty. I spent 3 years being invisible, he said. 3 years pushing a maintenance cart and pretending I didn't see the problems. Now I finally get to fix them. Yeah, I'm tired, but I'm also more myself than I've been since Sarah died. So maybe that's not sustainable long term, but right now it's what I need. Claire was quiet for a moment. I understand that, but you have a daughter. What happens when you burn out? I won't. Everyone burns out eventually. Not before I finish this. Claire sighed. You're as stubborn as they said you were. Fine, but I'm imposing one rule. Sundays off. Complete disconnect. No emails, no code, no work. Time with Ava. That's not necessary. It's non-negotiable. Part of the contract, as of now. Claire's voice was firm. Ava needs her father present, Not just physically there. You told me that yourself. Ryan wanted to argue, couldn't find the words. Okay, he said finally. Sunday's off. The first Sunday off felt wrong. Ryan woke up instinctively thinking about the migration algorithm, about the data synchronization problem he'd been working through. Then Ava climbed into his bed at 7 a.m., cold feet and warm smile, and asked if they could make waffles together. They spent the day doing nothing important. Waffles for breakfast. The park where Ava played with Maya and two other school friends while Ryan chatted with their parents about teacher conferences and upcoming school events. Grocery shopping, Ava helping pick out vegetables and sneaking cookies into the cart when she thought he wasn't looking. Normal life. By evening, Ryan realized Claire had been right. He felt more rested than he had in weeks. Not because he'd slept more, but because he'd remembered what mattered. Monday morning, he came back to work refreshed and found Jeff waiting at his temporary desk. "We need to talk," Jeff said. Ryan braced himself for another confrontation. "Okay. I've been reviewing your architecture specs, the parallel system approach, the gradual migration strategy." Jeff paused. "It's good. Really good. Better than anything my team came up with." Ryan blinked. "Thanks?" "Don't sound so surprised. I'm not an idiot, Ryan. I know my limitations. I'm good at managing people, at coordinating teams, at keeping projects on track. But the deep technical stuff, the architectural vision, that's not my strength. It's yours." This was the last thing Ryan had expected. "I appreciate you saying that. I'm saying it because it's true, and because I'm tired of fighting you." Jeff sat down. "Look, when Claire hired you, I felt threatened. Felt like she was bringing in a replacement, someone who'd make me look incompetent. And maybe I am incompetent, at least at this level of technical work, but I'm trying to be professional about it." Ryan studied Jeff's face, looking for manipulation, for angles. Found only exhaustion and something like resignation. "You're not incompetent," Ryan said carefully. "You're just playing the wrong position. You'd be a great program manager. Someone who coordinates between teams, manages timelines, handles stakeholder communication. But trying to make deep technical decisions when it's not your strength, that's setting yourself up to fail." Claire said something similar last week. Suggested I might be happier in a different role. Jeff's smile was bitter. "More diplomatic than you're being, but same message." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd think about it. That I needed time to figure out what I actually want." Jeff stood. "Anyway, I wanted you to know I'm not going to be a problem anymore. Your technical decisions are yours. I'll support them with the team." He left before Ryan could respond. Priya appeared a moment later. "Did I just see Jeff being reasonable?" "I think so. I'm as confused as you are." Claire must have had a serious conversation with him. "Probably." Ryan turned back to his screen. "Doesn't matter. We've got work to do." By the end of week 5, they had a working prototype of the new Q architecture running in a test environment. It handled 10 times the load of the current system with half the latency. Ryan scheduled a demonstration for the executive team. The day of the demo, he showed up at Nixora to find the conference room already packed. Claire, David, Amanda, Jeff, the entire engineering leadership, and 3 board members who'd flown in specifically for this. Patricia was there too, sitting in the back, watching everything with sharp eyes. Ryan's hands were shaking as he set up the presentation. This was it, the moment where his work either proved itself or fell apart. "Thank you all for coming," he started. 6 weeks ago, you hired me to redesign Nixora's payment queue architecture. Today, I'm going to show you what we've built." He walked them through the technical details. The new lock-free queue design, the distributed coordination system, the automated scaling that actually worked instead of making things worse. Then he switched to the live demo. "This is our current production system," he said, pointing to one monitor showing the familiar dashboard. "And this is the new system running in parallel." He triggered a load test. 50,000 simulated transactions per second, the kind of spike that would normally bring the production system to its knees. The production dashboard started showing strain immediately. Latency climbing, error rates increasing. The new system barely noticed. Transactions flowing smoothly, latency flat, no errors. Someone in the room whispered, "Holy shit." Ryan let the test run for 5 minutes while the room watched in silence. The new system never wavered. "Okay, David said finally. When can we migrate production traffic to this? We're ready now, Ryan said. But I'd recommend a gradual rollout. Start with 5% of traffic, monitor for a week, then scale up incrementally. How long until full migration? 8 weeks if nothing goes wrong, 12 to be safe. Claire was smiling, actually smiling, not the controlled professional version. This is incredible, Ryan. Better than I'd hoped. The team deserves credit. Priya, Marcus, Lisa, they made this happen. I just designed it. Don't be modest, Patricia said from the back. Design is everything. Implementation is just execution. The meeting broke up with people congratulating Ryan, asking technical questions, making plans for the rollout. Ryan answered mechanically, his brain already moving to the next problem. Jeff approached as the room emptied. That was impressive, really impressive. Thanks. I talked to Claire this morning, told her I'm stepping back from technical leadership, transitioning to a program management role focused on cross-functional coordination. Jeff's expression was complicated. She's promoting Priya to VP of Engineering. That's the right call. I know it is. Doesn't make it feel less like a demotion. Jeff extended his hand. But I wanted to say this while I still have the clarity. You were right about the technical approach, about my limitations, about everything. I was too proud to admit it before. Ryan shook his hand. Takes courage to admit when you're wrong, or when you're just not built for something. Either way. Jeff released his grip. Good luck with the migration. I mean that. He left. Ryan stood alone in the conference room, looking at the monitors still displaying the test results. His system. His design. Working exactly as he'd planned. For the first time in 5 years, Ryan felt like himself again. Not the person he'd been before Sarah got sick. That person was gone, buried with her in a cemetery across town. But someone new. Someone harder and clearer and less willing to be invisible. Someone who knew exactly what he was worth. His phone buzzed. Text from Ava. She'd borrowed Mrs. Chen's phone again. Mrs. Chen says you did something important today. Are you a hero? Ryan smiled and typed back, not a hero, just a dad who's good at fixing things. Love you. The response came immediately. Love you too. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? Absolutely. Pick you up at 3:30. Ryan left the conference room and walked out of Nixora into afternoon sunlight that felt like possibility. The ice cream celebration turned into a regular Thursday tradition. Every week after Ryan's progress meeting with Claire, he'd pick up Ava early from after-school care, and they'd go to the same shop on Morrison Street, the one with the hand-painted mural of cartoon cows, and the owner who knew Ava's order by heart. Mint chocolate chip, extra sprinkles, Mr. Paulson would say before Ava even opened her mouth. And black coffee for Dad, who pretends he doesn't want ice cream, but always steals bites from his daughter. It was true. Ryan always stole bites. 8 weeks into the migration, things were going almost too smoothly. The new system was handling 70% of production traffic without a single incident. Error rates were down. Performance metrics were up. Every dashboard showed green. Claire had started talking about the IPO timeline again, something that had been on hold for months. The board was pleased. Patricia had sent Ryan a bottle of wine that probably cost more than his first car, along with a note that said simply, "Told you so." But Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, that the other shoe was about to drop. It dropped on a Tuesday. Ryan was working from home, reviewing the final migration plan with Priya over video call when Ava's school called. "Mr. Mercer, this is Principal Davidson. Ava's fine, but we need you to come pick her up. There was an incident." Ryan's stomach dropped. "What kind of incident?" "I'd rather discuss it in person." "How soon can you be here?" 20 minutes later, Ryan was sitting in the principal's office while Ava sat outside with the nurse. Principal Davidson was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a serious expression. "Ava got into a fight," she said, "with Marcus, the boy from her class." "Ava doesn't fight." "She does when someone says her father is just a janitor who got lucky." Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. "Tell me exactly what happened." The story came out in pieces. Marcus had overheard his parents talking about Ryan, about the Nixora situation, about how some maintenance worker had stumbled into a consulting contract. At school, he'd repeated it to Ava, framed as an insult. Ava had defended Ryan. Marcus had pushed. Ava had pushed back harder. "She gave him a bloody nose," Principal Davidson said, which I which I obviously can't condone. But Mr. Mercer, between you and me, I understand why she did it. Is she expelled? No, 3-day suspension for both of them. But I wanted to talk to you about something else. The principal folded her hands on her desk. Kids talk, parents talk more. There's been some discussion about your situation, about how you went from maintenance to consultant. Some of it is admiring, some of it is less kind. People can think whatever they want. They can, but it affects Ava. She hears things, she defends you, and while I admire her loyalty, she's 7 years old. She shouldn't be carrying that weight. Ryan knew she was right, had known it for weeks, but hadn't wanted to face it. What do you suggest? Talk to her. Help her understand that other people's opinions don't define her father's worth. And maybe, if you're comfortable with it, come speak to the school. Let the parents and kids see who you actually are instead of letting rumors fill the gap. Ryan thought about that. About standing in front of a room full of parents who'd been gossiping about him. About making himself visible in a different way. I'll think about it, he said. Ava was quiet on the drive home. She stared out the window, her small hands clasped in her lap, a bruise forming on her knuckle. Does it hurt? Ryan asked. A little. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Marcus is a jerk. Maybe, but hitting him didn't solve anything. He said you were just lucky, that you're not really smart, you just knew the right people. Ava's voice cracked. He said his dad said you're a fraud. Ryan pulled the car over. They were 2 blocks from the apartment, but this conversation couldn't wait. He turned to face Ava. Look at me, sweetheart. She did, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Marcus's dad doesn't know me. He doesn't know my story. He sees a maintenance worker who got promoted and makes assumptions. That's what people do when they don't understand something. They create narratives that make sense to them. But it's not true. No, it's not. But here's the thing, Ava. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. What matters is that you know the truth. That I know the truth. That the people who actually matter know who I am and what I've done. But he said it in front of everyone. I know, and that's embarrassing and it hurts. But fighting him didn't change his mind. It just got you suspended and gave him ammunition to say you're violent too. Ava was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. I just wanted them to know you're good at things, that you're important. Ryan unbuckled his seatbelt and pulled Ava into an awkward hug across the center console. I am good at things, and I am important. To you, to the people I work with, to myself. I don't need Marcus or his father to validate that. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you love me. And when someone you love is disrespected, it feels personal. That's normal. But baby, you can't fight everyone who says something mean about me. You'll spend your whole life fighting. Ava pulled back, wiping her eyes. What should I do instead? You know the truth. You hold on to that. And when people say untrue things, you can choose to correct them calmly, or you can choose to walk away. But violence isn't the answer. Even when they're being really mean, even then. They sat in the parked car for a few more minutes while Ava composed herself. Then Ryan drove the last 2 blocks home, his mind churning. That evening, after Ava was asleep, Ryan called Claire. We have a problem, he said. He explained the situation, the school fight, the rumors, the parents talking. Claire was quiet for a moment. I was afraid of this. The local tech blog ran a story last week about Nexora's turnaround. They mentioned you by name, called it a Cinderella story of a maintenance worker saving the company. I didn't authorize that. Our PR team did. They thought it was good publicity, human interest, underdog narrative, all that. Claire sighed. I should have warned you, should have anticipated the blowback. It's affecting my daughter. I know, and I'm sorry. What do you need from me? Ryan had been thinking about this all evening. I need to control my own narrative. The school wants me to come speak, tell my story directly instead of letting people speculate. I think I should do it, but I need your permission to talk publicly about my history with Nexora. The NDA... I know what the NDA says, but this isn't about disparaging the company. This is about being honest about my own life, about helping my daughter understand that my value isn't determined by job titles. Claire was quiet for a long moment. You know what? Do it. Talk to the school. Tell your story however you want. The board might push back, but I'll handle them. You sure? Ryan, you saved this company. More than that, you've transformed it. If telling your story helps your daughter, then tell it. Anyone who has a problem with that can talk to me. After hanging up, Ryan sat in the dark living room thinking about what he'd say. How to explain 5 years of loss and survival to a room full of parents and 7-year-olds. The presentation happened Friday afternoon in the school gymnasium. Principal Davidson had organized it as an assembly, all the 2nd and 3rd graders plus any parents who wanted to attend. Ryan had expected maybe a dozen parents. There were over 60. Word had spread. The maintenance worker turned consultant was coming to tell his story. People were curious. Ryan stood at the front of the gym, looking at the sea of small faces and judgmental parents, and felt his hands start to sweat. Then he saw Ava in the 3rd row, sitting next to Maya, giving him a thumbs up. He smiled and began. Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Mercer, Ava's dad. Principal Davidson asked me to come talk to you about work and life and how things aren't always what they seem. So here's my story. He told them about Meridian Systems, about building a payment processing platform from scratch, about the success, the acquisition, the money that should have set him up for life. Then he told them about Sarah, about the cancer diagnosis, about watching the woman he loved fight a battle she couldn't win while their savings evaporated into medical bills and experimental treatments. The gymnasium was completely silent. When Sarah died, I was 30 years old with a 4-year-old daughter and no money left. The non-compete clause from the acquisition meant I couldn't work in payment processing for any competitor. I tried to get hired as a consultant, as an architect, anything in my field. But I'd been out of the industry for 2 years taking care of my wife. My resume had a gap. My references were outdated, and honestly, I was a mess. People could see it. Ryan paused, looking at Ava. She was leaning forward, completely focused. So I took a maintenance job at Nixora, night shift, cleaning floors and emptying trash. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't what I'd planned for my life. But it paid the bills and it let me be home for Ava in the mornings. That mattered more than prestige. Some of the parents were shifting uncomfortably. Ryan pressed on. I worked that job for 3 years, and you know what I learned? That there's no such thing as unimportant work. The engineers writing code, the maintenance workers keeping the building clean, the security guards making sure everyone's safe, we all matter. The janitor isn't less valuable than the CEO. We just have different roles. He saw a few parents nodding now. Others still looked skeptical. The night I fixed Nexora's system, I wasn't lucky. I was doing exactly what I'd been trained to do, what I'd spent a decade learning. The only difference was that someone finally gave me the chance to use those skills again. Claire Bennett, the CEO, saw a problem and cared more about solving it than about who solved it. That's what good leadership looks like. Ryan walked closer to where the kids were sitting. Here's what I want you all to understand. Your value as a person isn't determined by your job title. It's determined by how you treat people, how you solve problems, how you show up for the people you love. I was the same person whether I was emptying trash cans or redesigning payment systems. The work changed. I didn't. A hand went up in the back. Marcus, the boy who'd fought with Ava. Yes? Ryan said. Marcus stood up nervously. My dad said you just got lucky, that you were in the right place at the right time. Ryan could have gotten defensive, could have put the kid in his place. Instead, he nodded. Your dad's partially right. I was lucky. Lucky that the crisis happened during my shift. Lucky that Claire was willing to listen to a maintenance worker. Lucky that I'd kept my skills sharp during 3 years of night work. But Marcus, here's the thing about luck. It only matters if you're prepared for it. I could have been in the right place at the right time and not known how to fix the system. Then I'd just be a janitor who watched the company fail. He saw understanding dawn on a few faces. Luck is opportunity meeting preparation. I prepared for a decade. The opportunity came later. Both mattered. Another hand, a girl from Ava's class. Did you feel sad when you had to be a janitor? Sometimes, Ryan admitted. Sometimes I felt like I'd failed, like I'd wasted my education and talent. But other times I felt grateful. Grateful I had any job at all. Grateful I could provide for Ava. Grateful for the quiet hours where I could think and plan and remember who I was. He looked directly at Ava now. And I was grateful because those 3 years taught me something important. They taught me that I don't need other people's approval to have value, that my daughter's love matters more than professional success, that being present is worth more than being important. The assembly wrapped up 20 minutes later. Parents approached Ryan afterward, some apologizing for the gossip, others asking questions about his work. A few still suspicious, but at least quiet about it. Marcus's father was one of the last to approach. He was a tall man in an expensive suit, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Mercer, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions, said things I shouldn't have said, especially where my son could hear them." Ryan extended his hand. "We all make assumptions. It's what we do when we learn we're wrong that matters." They shook hands. Marcus was standing next to his father, looking at the floor. "Marcus," Ryan said gently, "you want to apologize to Ava?" The boy looked up, surprised to be addressed directly. "I'm sorry I said mean things about your dad. And I'm sorry I punched you," Ava said from beside Ryan. Marcus almost smiled. "You punch really hard for a girl." "I punch really hard for anyone," Ava corrected. The adults laughed, breaking the tension. That weekend, Ryan took Ava to visit Sarah's grave for the first time in months. They brought flowers, daisies, Sarah's favorite, and sat on the grass in front of the headstone. "Do you think Mom would be proud of you?" Ava asked. Ryan thought about that, about the choices he'd made, the compromises, the 3 years of invisibility. "I think she'd be proud that I kept you safe and loved. The rest is just details." "Mrs. Chen says Mom is watching over us." Ryan didn't believe that, hadn't believed in anything watching over them since Sarah died. But he understood why Mrs. Chen said it, why Ava needed to believe it. "Maybe she is," he said. "And if she is, I think she's happy that we're okay, that we found our way through." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ava asked the question that had probably been building for weeks. "Are we rich now?" Ryan laughed. "We're comfortable. We have enough." "Does that mean we have to move?" "Do you want to move?" Ava considered this seriously. "I like our apartment, and Mrs. Chen, and my school, even though Marcus is sometimes a jerk. Then we'll stay. Maybe get a slightly bigger place in the same building if one opens up. But we don't have to change everything just because we have more money." "Good. I don't want everything to change." "Me neither, sweetheart. Me neither." Monday morning, Ryan arrived at Nexora for the final migration meeting. They were moving the last 30% of traffic to the new system today. If everything went smoothly, the old architecture would be retired by end of week. The conference room was packed. Engineering team, executive leadership, board members on video call, everyone wanted to watch this moment. Priya was running point on the actual migration. She'd grown into her VP role quickly, commanding the room in a way that would have been impossible 6 months ago. "We're ready to proceed," she said. "All systems green, monitoring in place, rollback procedures tested, on Ryan's signal." Everyone looked at Ryan. He thought about the past 6 months, about the late nights and hard conversations and slowly rebuilding not just the system, but himself. About learning that value wasn't about visibility, that importance wasn't about titles, that success was measured in more than stock prices and job descriptions. "Do it," he said. Priya typed the command. On the main display, traffic started shifting. 30%, 40, 50. The old system's load dropping as the new one absorbed everything. No errors, no latency spikes, just smooth, efficient processing. At 70%, someone in the room started clapping. Others joined. By the time they hit 100% migration, the whole room was applauding. Claire was smiling that genuine smile again. "Ladies and gentlemen, Nexora just became a completely different company, and we have Ryan and this team to thank for it." More applause. Ryan felt awkward and pleased and ready to be done with the attention. Patricia's face appeared on the video screen. "Ryan, remarkable work. The board would like to extend your contract, another 18 months, similar terms, focused on scaling architecture for our international expansion." Ryan had known this was coming, had spent the weekend thinking about his answer. "I appreciate the offer," he said, "but I'm going to decline." The room went silent. "You're declining?" Claire's voice was carefully neutral. "The system is built. Priya and her team can handle the scaling. They don't need me for that." Ryan looked around the room. "I set out to fix what was broken. It's fixed. Now I want to go back to having a life that isn't consumed by work." "We could reduce the hours," David offered. "Make it a part-time arrangement." "I know, But I don't want to be the guy you call every time there's a crisis. I don't want to be indispensable. I want to be a father who's present, a person who exists outside of work. I had that taken from me once. I'm not giving it away voluntarily again. Claire was watching him closely. What will you do? I don't know yet. Maybe independent consulting, small projects, things I can do from home. Maybe teaching, passing on what I know to people starting out. Maybe nothing for a while. Ryan shrugged. I have options now. That's more than I had 6 months ago. Patricia spoke from the screen. We'll miss you, Ryan, but I understand. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is know when to walk away. The meeting broke up soon after. People congratulated Ryan, expressed disappointment he wasn't staying, asked if he'd reconsider. He remained polite and firm. Claire caught him in the hallway afterward. You're really leaving. I'm really leaving. I had plans for you, projects, leadership roles, a path to CTO if you wanted it. I know, but that's your path, Claire, not mine. She studied his face. You've changed. From that first night when you were just the maintenance guy trying to help, you're more confident now, more certain of yourself. I'm the same person. I just stopped apologizing for it. Fair enough. Claire extended her hand. Thank you, Ryan, for saving us. For building something that will outlast both of us here. Ryan shook her hand. Thank you for seeing me, for taking the chance. Not many CEOs would have listened to a janitor. Not many janitors could have done what you did. They stood there for a moment, two people who'd needed each other at exactly the right time, now ready to move forward separately. If you ever change your mind, Claire said, the door's open. I appreciate that, but I won't change my mind. Ryan's last day at Nexora was quiet. He spent it documenting everything, answering final questions, making sure Priya and the team had everything they needed. At 5 p.m., he packed up his temporary desk. There wasn't much to pack, and walked to the elevator. The engineering pod threw him a small party. Cake from the grocery store, coffee that wasn't terrible, genuine gratitude from people who'd benefited from his work. Priya hugged him. You changed my life, you know that, right? Not just the promotion, but showing me that technical competence matters more than politics. You did that yourself, Ryan said. I just gave you permission to believe it. Marcus, the senior engineer who'd been there that first night, shook his hand. You're a legend now, the janitor who saved Nexora. That story's going to get told for years. Probably embellished more each time, Ryan said. Definitely. By the time I retire, you'll have fixed it while fighting off hackers with one hand and rescuing a puppy with the other. Ryan laughed. Make sure the puppy is cute. I want my legend to have details. He left Nexora at 6:30 p.m., walking out into early evening light. The building looked the same as it had the first night he'd worked there, but everything else had changed. Or maybe nothing had changed except his understanding of it. He picked up Ava from after-school care, early, because he could now, and took her to their ice cream place. Is this still our Thursday tradition if it's Monday? Ava asked. It's our whenever we want tradition now, Ryan said. They sat at their usual table while Ava demolished her mint chocolate chip and Ryan drank coffee and stole bites. Daddy, Ava said, mint ice cream on her nose. Are you done being important now? Ryan wiped her nose with a napkin. I was never done being important. I was just important in different ways. Are you happy? It was such a simple question. 7-year-olds didn't complicate things unnecessarily. Yeah, baby, I'm happy. Good. Because you smile more now. I like when you smile. That night, after Ava was asleep, Ryan sat on the couch in their small apartment with the counters that didn't quite line up and thought about the future. He had money now, not wealthy, but comfortable, enough to give Ava opportunities, to stop worrying about every grocery bill, to breathe. He had options. Could consult, could teach, could build something new if inspiration struck. He had time. Mornings with Ava, evenings together, weekends that were actually weekends. He had himself back. Not the person he'd been before Sarah's death, that Ryan was gone, buried with her, but someone new, forged from loss and survival and the hard-won understanding that value didn't require validation. His phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. Hi, Ryan, this is Dr. Rachel Kemp from State University. Claire Bennett suggested I reach out. We're starting a new program training low-income students in software engineering, looking for industry professionals to teach part-time. Interested? Ryan read the message twice. Teaching. Passing on knowledge. Helping people who needed opportunities. That felt right. He typed back. Very interested. Let's talk. The response came quickly. Great. Are you free Wednesday afternoon? I'm free every afternoon now. Wednesday works. Ryan set down his phone and went to check on Ava one more time. She was sprawled across her bed, one arm hanging off the edge, the stuffed elephant that had been Sarah's last gift tucked under her chin. He adjusted her blankets, kissed her forehead. We did it, he whispered. We made it through. Ava mumbled something in her sleep that might have been, love you, daddy, or might have been nothing. Ryan stood in the doorway for another moment, watching his daughter sleep, feeling the weight of the past 5 years finally lifting. They'd lost so much. Sarah, the company Ryan had built, years of stability and certainty, but they'd gained something too. Understanding, resilience, the knowledge that value came from within, not from job titles or bank accounts or other people's opinions. Ryan had been invisible for 3 years, had pushed a maintenance cart through corridors where people looked through him like he didn't exist, had accepted that invisibility because he'd thought it was the price of stability. But he'd been wrong. Invisibility wasn't stability, it was erasure. Being seen mattered, not for ego or validation, but because visibility meant possibility, meant opportunities, meant being able to help and teach and create and matter. He'd been seen again, finally, had reclaimed his expertise and his worth, had proven to himself and his daughter and anyone else who cared that maintenance worker and architect were both worthy, both valuable, both him. And now he was choosing what came next, not based on fear or desperation or the need to prove anything to anyone, but based on what mattered, time with Ava, work that fulfilled him, teaching others who'd been overlooked or underestimated. Ryan turned off the hallway light and went to his own room. Tomorrow he'd start planning the next chapter. Tonight, he'd sleep knowing that for the first time in 5 years, they were okay. More than okay. They were building something new, not the life they'd planned, not the future they'd imagined before Sarah got sick and everything fell apart. But a good life. An honest life. A life where Ryan could look at himself in the mirror and see someone worthy of his daughter's belief. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. 3 months later, Ryan stood in front of a classroom of 20 students at State University. They were kids from circumstances that didn't usually lead to tech careers. Foster care, poverty, broken families, kids who'd been invisible their whole lives. He wrote his name on the board. Ryan Mercer. Before we start, he said, I want to tell you my story. Not to impress you, but to show you that where you start doesn't determine where you end up. That being overlooked doesn't mean being worthless. That sometimes the most important qualification is refusing to give up. He told them about Meridian, about Sarah, about the 3 years pushing a maintenance cart, about the night everything changed and the months that followed. The students listened with the intensity of people hearing their own stories reflected back. You're all here because someone saw potential in you, Ryan said. Maybe you don't see it yet. Maybe you think you're not smart enough, not prepared enough, not the right kind of person for this field. I'm here to tell you that's wrong. The tech industry needs people who've struggled, who've failed, who understand that intelligence isn't about where you went to school or who your parents know. It's about solving problems and refusing to quit when things get hard. A hand went up, a young woman in the back row. Yes? How did you stay confident when everyone was treating you like you didn't matter? Ryan smiled. I didn't stay confident. I lost confidence completely. Spent 3 years thinking I'd wasted my potential, that I'd failed. But I had a daughter who believed in me. And eventually, her belief became a mirror. I started seeing myself the way she saw me. Not as a janitor or a consultant or any job title. Just as someone who could fix things. Someone who mattered because of who I was, not what I did. The class ran for 2 hours. Ryan taught them about system architecture, about problem solving, about the technical skills they'd need. But more than that, he taught them about value, about refusing to be invisible, about understanding that everyone's path was different and that was okay. After class, 3 students stayed behind with questions. Ryan answered each one carefully, remembering what it felt like to be hungry for knowledge and unsure if you deserved access to it. Walking to his car afterward, Ryan's phone rang. Ava, calling from Mrs. Chen's apartment. Hi, Daddy. How was teaching? It was good, sweetheart. Really good. How was school? Maya and I are building a fort in the living room. Mrs. Chen says we're being creative. Can you bring pizza for dinner? Absolutely. Pepperoni? And breadsticks. Deal. See you in 20 minutes. Ryan drove through the city thinking about how strange life was. How you could lose everything and find something better. How you could be invisible and then seen and then choose your own visibility. How endings could become beginnings if you let them. He stopped for pizza, added breadsticks and a salad because Mrs. Chen would give him grief if he didn't include vegetables, and drove the last few blocks home. The apartment building still looked shabby in daylight. Still had cracked steps and graffiti someone had half-heartedly painted over. Still required the lift and turn trick on the front door. But it was home. The place where Ryan had survived the worst years of his life and come out stronger. He climbed the stairs, the elevator was broken again, and heard Ava's laugh through the door before he even knocked. Mrs. Chen opened it, rolled her eyes at the pizza box, and pulled him inside. "Your daughter has destroyed my living room," she announced. "Our fort is amazing," Ava corrected, emerging from a construction of couch cushions and blankets. "Come see, Daddy." Ryan set down the pizza and crawled into the fort with Ava. It was cramped and poorly engineered and absolutely perfect. "This is the best fort I've ever seen," he said seriously. "Better than the one we made last month?" "Way better. The structural integrity is much improved." Ava beamed. "I'm going to be an engineer like you when I grow up." "You can be anything you want," Ryan said. "Engineer, doctor, artist, teacher, whatever makes you happy. But you're happy being an engineer." "I'm happy being your dad," Ryan corrected. "The engineering is just what I do. It's not who I am." Ava thought about that. "Who are you then?" It was the kind of question only kids asked, cutting straight through to the essential truth. Ryan pulled his daughter close, holding her in the cramped fort made of cushions and love. "I'm the guy who fixes things," he said, "who loves you more than anything, who learned that being important and being visible are different things, and that the most important people are often the ones nobody sees." "I see you, Daddy." "I know you do, baby. That's what matters." They ate pizza in the fort, while Mrs. Chen complained about crumbs and laughed at their jokes. They watched a movie after dinner, Ava falling asleep against Ryan's shoulder halfway through like she always did. Later, after carrying Ava back to their apartment and tucking her into bed, Ryan stood at his kitchen window looking out at the city lights. He thought about the journey, about being someone important, then invisible, then important again, about learning that all of it was just perspective, just labels other people applied. The truth was simpler. He was Ryan Mercer, father, engineer, teacher, survivor. Someone who'd lost everything and built it back differently. Someone who'd learned that titles didn't define worth, that visibility didn't require validation, that the most important work often happened in the quiet moments nobody celebrated. He'd been invisible for 3 years. And in that invisibility, he'd found something essential. Not success or recognition or professional redemption. He'd found himself. The parts that mattered. The parts that couldn't be taken away by job loss or death or cruel circumstance. And that, Ryan thought as he turned away from the window and headed to bed, was worth more than any consulting contract or stock option or professional accolade. He was seen now by the people who mattered, by Ava, who'd never stopped believing, by students who needed someone to show them that their circumstances didn't define their potential, by himself, finally, after years of looking away. That was enough, more than enough. That was everything.